So you've changed. You finally did it. You finally built that new identity. You cut out the bad habits. You built the system. You built the structure. And for a little while, you genuinely felt like a totally new person. And then all of a sudden, something started to pull you back. It was very quiet at first. Maybe you just had a craving for something that you gave up. Maybe you completely just skipped a day, or maybe you went back to one of those old habits that you swore that you were done with. And one morning you looked up and you were right back to the man that you've always been. So the question then becomes, why is it that every time you build the new identity, the old version of you always wins and it always snaps you back no matter what you try? Well, in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to break down. I'm going to answer that question for you in its wholeness. I'm going to show you the real reason why you keep snapping back. And I promise you, it's not what you've been told. It's not what you're expecting me to say. I'm going to show you why the harder you try and fight the old version of you, the harder the old version of you drags you back. And then I'm going to hand you the one shift that finally makes the new identity stay. So pay very close attention to what we're about to go into. But before we get into any of it, I need to say one thing, because I know some part of you is already wondering it. If you've been quietly thinking, maybe I'm just broken. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm the one guy who doesn't have enough discipline. Maybe I'm the one exception who can't make anything stick no matter how bad I want it. I want you to understand that you do not have a discipline problem, and you are not broken. You are not the exception. You've just never been shown the actual mechanism running underneath all of this. And by the end of this video, you will be shown that. And you are never going to see your old self the same way again by the time we finish this video. So let's get into this. What you've actually tried. I call it the graveyard of methods. So you've tried to out-discipline the old identity. You've tried to just apply more effort. You've tried affirmations in the mirror. You've read books on the subconscious. You've cut out any bad habits, whether it's weed, alcohol, bad eating, scrolling, vaping, it could be anything, but you cut it out. And then you told yourself, Control-Alt-Delete every time a new old thought showed up. You just tried to ignore the old thoughts and pretend that they weren't there. And maybe you even thought about changing your entire environment, getting a new circle of friends, maybe getting around other people, maybe moving out of your city. You've tried all these different weapons, but no matter what you've tried, you always end up with the same result. And every one of them, maybe they worked for a couple of days, maybe they worked for a week, maybe they worked for a couple of weeks, maybe even a month that you were locked in and it worked and you felt it click. You said, okay, I built a new identity. The frequency is right. You thought, this is it. I finally became him. And then a few days later, or maybe a few weeks later, you looked up and you were right back to where you always have been. The same urges, the same version of you, and asking yourself the same question that made you click this video in the first place. Is it even working? So sit with this thought for 1 second, because it's the thread that we're going to pull from on the rest of this video. The harder you fight the old version of you, the harder it snaps back. Every time. There's no exception to this. And that isn't a coincidence, and it's not you being a weak man. It is the clue. It's the clue. Think of yourself as an investigator as we go through this video. And right now, we have a clue right in front of us that we need to dive into, because once you see why you snap back, you will not be able to unsee why you snap back. So if you look at the pattern for a second, discipline isn't affirmations, it's not cutting vices, it's not reading books, and it's not changing your environment. Those are all completely different tools. And every one of them gave you the exact same thing. A hint of, I'm changing. And then all of a sudden, a snap back to normal, to what you've always been. So when 10 different tools all give you the same nothing, at some point you got to start to ask, man, maybe the tool isn't the problem. Maybe it's not the problem. So the trap that you are in is you think you built a new identity, but if you go back and actually describe what you did, you're going to notice something very specific. All you did was cut things out. You stopped this, you stopped that. Maybe you added a 6 o'clock alarm. You started getting up earlier. You said affirmations in the mirror. Every single thing you can name about what you did to build that new identity is a behavior. You listed everything that you removed, and nothing about who you actually became in the process. And that's the whole misunderstanding that you're having. You think that your habits make the man. You think that your habits build the new identity, but they don't. That's not what it is at all. Habits are a byproduct of who you already are underneath. So the disciplined guy doesn't have discipline because he has to force those habits. The habits just fall out of him. They're downstream of him because that's who he is internally underneath it all. So you've been trying to build the house starting from the roof. You're doing everything backwards. You're stacking behaviors on top of an identity that's never changed. And that's backwards. And that's why no matter what you do, you always snap back. That's why it always collapses. So the habit that you keep fighting, it could be anything in your life. I don't care if it's weed. I don't care if it's scrolling. I don't care if it's procrastination, whatever it might be. It could be getting angry, whatever it is. You're treating it like a thing with power over you. Like it's an enemy that you have to beat, but it was never the enemy. It's a symptom. It's a readout. It's the old identity still running underneath, showing you, hey, I'm still here. And that's why you feel shame around it. You don't feel shame about things that aren't who you are. If I said right now, you watching this video, I think your blue hair is so ugly. It's the ugliest blue hair I've ever seen. And you don't have blue hair. It's going to roll right off your shoulders because you're saying, that doesn't offend me. That doesn't bother me, Devin. I don't have blue hair. So if you feel shame about these things in your life, that goes to tell me the old identity is still present. Because if that wasn't who you were, you wouldn't feel shame about it. The shame itself is the tell. The shame is still yours. And you cannot beat a symptom into submission. You have to change what it's a symptom of. So the mechanism you need to see in plain terms is that inside of every man is an identity thermostat, is a set point. And think of the thermostat as like a thermostat on your wall, right? You set a thermostat to 72 degrees. And the second the room gets hotter or it gets colder, the thermostat kicks on and it drags the temperature right back to 72 degrees. The thermostat isn't broken. That's what the thermostat is supposed to do. It's doing its job. That's the entire job. Now, you have one of those thermostats for your identity. You have a set point for how disciplined you're allowed to be. You have a set point for how much money you're allowed to have. You have a set point for how much peace you're allowed to feel. You have a set point for how much success feels normal to you. And you didn't choose the number. You didn't choose the set point. The set point got set many, many years ago. And it defends that number like your life depends on it. Because it does. The second you rise above or below that set point, you're in the new identity temporarily. To your nervous system, that quite literally feels like death because someone is dying. The old identity is dying. And that's where the thermostat kicks on. Your old identity deems your success as a threat because the nervous system doesn't actually care about your success. It cares about keeping you safe. And what's safe is what's familiar. It's what's normal. It's what you've always been. So whenever you try and exceed that, your set point always tries to pull you back. So watch what actually happens, right? Like I just said, you push way above your set point, right? You install a new routine. Maybe you start hitting the gym, or maybe you try and be more disciplined, or maybe you put in a new business strategy, or maybe you try a new affirmation strategy. And your system reads it as too far from normal. And so it does its job. It drags you back home. And that craving, that old self clawing back is not you being weak. That is your identity thermostat. And here's the part that stings the most. The harder you push with force and with discipline, the harder the thermostat pulls. Because you're trying to out-muscle and out-discipline and outwork the set point with the exact same force that set the set point in the first place. And you cannot out-discipline a broken foundation. If white knuckling and more work and more discipline and just trying and eventually it's going to work, if that was ever going to work, brother, it would have worked by now. It would have worked by now. The old identity doesn't linger for 5 months. It doesn't take 5 months to make this change. It would have worked if you had a system that actually worked. And that is exactly why more information will never save you. You could literally sit here and watch all my videos. You can read 10 more books. You can find the perfect technique. You can change your whole environment, you could change your whole city, but it won't touch this because none of it ever showed you why you snapped back in the first place. It just gave you a new tool to fight the exact same set point. More information on top of an unchanged identity doesn't set you free. It doesn't install the new identity. It just makes you more aware of exactly why you keep failing. So you don't have clarity, okay? This whole thing, it's not clarity. That's a smarter kind of being stuck. But the outcome is you're still stuck, right? So let me say it this other way, because some of you might feel this more than you think, right? That set point, that's a frequency that you're broadcasting underneath, whether you like it or not. It's the identity you actually hold when nobody is watching, when you're all alone, when you're by yourself. It's who you are. And you can only ever hold on to what matches your own internal self-image. And this is why the affirmation feels like a lie. It's why it feels fake when you're saying affirmations to yourself. You stand in the mirror, you say, I'm disciplined. You say, I'm wealthy, I'm free, I'm happy, I'm present, I'm peaceful. And something underneath you goes, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're basically just telling yourself two opposite things. And your mind always believes what the subconscious believes. It doesn't believe what you're saying out of your mouth. It believes what your own internal self-image reads. It believes what your thermostat is set to. That's why your affirmations feel fake. It feels fake because to the man underneath, it is fake. It is fake. You're broadcasting one frequency and begging for a life that lives on another. That's why it feels fake. So the deepest reason you really snap back, and almost nobody's going to tell you this, is that you never actually knew who you were becoming. Go look at how you define the new you. I guarantee you defined it as things you don't want to do. Oh, I don't want to have this habit. I want to stop vaping. I want to stop procrastinating. I want to stop getting distracted. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be the old me. And every bit of it was something that you were running from. You literally built your whole identity out of what you were escaping. So the day that you finally escaped the identity, there was nothing on the other side to pull you forward. It was just empty space. And empty space doesn't stay empty. The old you walks right back in and occupies that space because you never gave the new identity anywhere to go. So, if you actually hit it, if you actually had the new identity, if you got there, you probably felt the fire just kind of vanish. Let's say your new identity was you at a certain income level or a certain place in work, and you felt that fire and you were working so hard to get to that place. And then once you felt like you finally arrived, the fire in you, the passion in you just completely vanished. The second you arrived, the drive was gone. And maybe in that moment you said, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Where did it go? Nothing was wrong with you. The fire was never who you were, and that's the problem. You were using the fire as a mechanism to get to a destination that you didn't even know what the destination really was. So once you finally got there, the fire never became who you actually were, and that's the reason why it died. The fire you felt was the pressure of running from something. It was from running from the old identity. So of course the fire in you died the moment that you finally felt like you escaped it, because it had nothing left to run from. And if that fire had actually become who you were, it wouldn't have switched off the instant you got to where you were trying to go. It would have just been the way you live. You didn't lose your discipline. You ran out of things to run from, and you never built anything to run towards. The fire, the motivation, the discipline, it never became your identity. That's why you have to force it. And I know this because I lived myself every single version of this. For years, I fought the old me head on. I cut things out of my life. I remember I cut out vaping. I cut out smoking weed. I cut out drinking. I cut out going out. I cut out, distractions. I white knuckled my routine as much as I possibly could. I stacked discipline on top of a man that I never changed internally. And I built an entire business on a set point that I never raised. And that's why my business literally collapsed in front of my eyes. The money that I had, the health, I was in great health at the time, all of it snapped back to normal. I didn't just lose the business. I got out of shape, I became unhealthy. And that's the worst part. The worst part wasn't losing it. It was that I kept blaming myself, thinking, Devin, you just need to be more disciplined. You just need to be more consistent. You need one more system. You're one technique away. When the entire time I was fighting a war that I could never win because I was fighting myself with my own hands. So if somebody had showed me this one thing, that old self was never an enemy to kill, just a signal that I hadn't become the man yet, I would have stopped the war inside my head years earlier. And I wouldn't have burned all that time hating myself for falling off. I would have actually built something that was gonna work, right? I would have stopped trying to force who I was becoming and just started becoming that guy. That's the shift. It's who you become at an internal level, and the habits of that man fall downstream. You don't have to force yourself to brush your teeth in the morning because you don't identify as a man with rotten teeth. That is why you have to focus on the identity. That is the shift. So the fix for you, the fix you have to implement, and it's the opposite of everything you've been doing, is stop trying to kill the old version of you. Stop fighting it. Stop deleting it. Stop out disciplining it. Stop out affirming it. You don't rise to the level of your discipline. You fall to the level of your identity. So you don't fight the old self. You have to make the old self obsolete. You have to raise your set point. You have to become the man underneath. And once you can do that, the old self will stop snapping you back, because not because you beat the old self, but because that's not who you are anymore. And this is exactly where you have to start, all right? I want you to do this today, you watching this video. It costs you absolutely nothing. I want you to stop describing who you're trying to escape, all right? Forget the things you're trying to cut out. Forget the laziness, forget the procrastination, forget the alcohol, forget whatever it is. Forget the old you. Instead, I want you to write this down for yourself. I want you to describe the man on the other side, the version of you who already has the life, and that life is just normal to him now. Write it in the present tense as if you're already there. Not the guy trying to get there. I want you to write it as the guy who's already there, as if you manifested all your desired reality and you're 6 months into it. What does that guy's morning actually look like? What are the things that guy doesn't even think about anymore? What is beneath him now? I want you to describe him so clearly that you could just be that version of you right now, right here, today. Because that man is the identity. And the second you start being him, instead of running from who you were, the habits stop being a fight, and those habits will naturally just fall off because they were never his. That's why you don't need more discipline. You need to change the identity underneath. And that's when everything is going to flip, because the old self stops fighting you because there's nothing left to fight. You're not on his frequency anymore. The discipline stops feeling like a force and it starts feeling automatic because it's just who you are now. The habits, the bad habits, will drop off on their own, and all the stuff that you were chasing, whether it's money, whether it's a body, whether it's peace, whether it's a relationship, whatever the manifestation is you were trying to get, starts showing up as a byproduct of the man that you became, instead of something that you're white knuckling and hoping for. You stop managing your old self and you just outgrow him. That's the shift you need to focus on. And that's exactly what I do. I literally help men rebuild the identity underneath so the new self actually stays. And so you stop snapping back to the guy that you already outgrew. So if this video hit you, if you just realized that, oh shit, Devin's right. I've been fighting the war that I could never win because I was fighting myself, then DM me the word stay on Instagram. My Instagram is in the description. And we can have a conversation where I will actually help you raise your set point so the new you finally holds. You can finally become the new identity. You can finally become free of the old identity. So DM me the word stay on Instagram and we'll have a chat. I hope this video was helpful. Please focus on identity and stop worrying about the strategy. If you just build the identity, everything will fall into place. I'll see you in the next one.